Hi, welcome to this video about enlightenment. I'm Helen and I'm going to talk a bit about why I see enlightenment as being distinct from awakening and how I see it as being an essential part of the whole of our exploration towards who we are, and also a little bit about how I personally work with the enlightenment process, what my kind of approach is. So I see enlightenment distinct from awakening because I'm really clear now that awakening is purely the recognition of your essential nature. And that can have a huge impact in itself on the enlightenment process, because our essential nature is that open, infinite capacity of awareness. It is the light of transformation. It is the space within which all change happens. And the more we know ourselves as that, because given that that is also the space of relief and relaxation and calm and okayness, the space that creates can itself support an enlightenment process. But I distinguish it from enlightenment because for most of us, we have a bunch of psychological conditioning which isn't solved, nothing really to solve, but let's just say solved by awakening. It doesn't all clear up instantly the minute we are awakened. It's generally a slow process, and sometimes slower for others, depending on the volume, the depth, the significance, the degree to which the conditioning looks true will alter and change and affect the deconditioning process, the enlightenment process. So I do see these as two distinct parts of the process, because although you could say, well, all you need to do is awaken and keep awakening, keep remembering. Every time you get caught up in your psychology, all you have to do is remember who you are. All you have to do is drop back into that space of awareness. And yes, that's definitely an option. And if that works for you and that's enough, then amazing, really amazing. For me, that wasn't enough. I could see, I could feel that there was still so much conditioning swirling around, and awakening hadn't solved it. Awakening hadn't cleared it up. Awakening hadn't aligned it with my nature. So I was seeing all these parts of my life where behaviour and words still continued to misalign. They still continued to not be in alignment with who I knew myself to be, with the truth of what was available, with the ease and love and flow that I knew was my nature. And so actively going towards this psychological conditioning and actively doing something to reveal it, to see it for what it is, was really important to me. And whether that was my high achieving nature, I don't know, but it certainly didn't look enough for me to just sit and go, oh well, it's okay, I'll just keep looking to my nature of awareness. That just didn't make sense to me. And I think it's really important to highlight that this dual approach of both awakening and enlightenment also supports us in us not going into spiritual denial. It supports us in not thinking that all the problems are theirs out there, not thinking that there's nothing else I can do, and not using awakening or enlightenment as a way to, I guess particularly awakening, as a way to distance ourselves from the world, as a way to, oh well, that doesn't feel like my nature, so I'm just going to drop back into this space of awareness. It feels much nicer there. We don't want to be we don't want to be distanced. We don't want to be some spiritual, aloof, sitting in a cave person. Really, we want to be in life. We want to be in the action. We want to be engaging. And unless we look at our psychological conditioning, we're going to keep bumping up against our same stories over and over and over again. So enlightenment is the lightening of our psychological conditioning to align it with the nature of our essential nature, awareness, which is what we've seen through awakening. And in doing that, it means that, yeah, we just don't get upset in the way we did before. It doesn't mean we don't have opinions. It doesn't mean we can't have a preference. It just means that we stop battling with ourselves internally, and therefore we stop battling with the world. We stop holding ourselves back internally, and therefore we stop holding ourselves back with the world. We stop restricting love and gratitude and delight in ourselves, and therefore we can experience that in the world. So it really, that Rumi quote about removing the barriers to love that we have built within us is so much this. We're looking at these psychological barriers that we've collected over the years. Nobody's collected them, they have been collected, and our work now is to uncollect them, or at the very least clean them up so that they align with what we know to be true. And so we remove these barriers within ourselves, and therefore the barriers within the world dissolve and disappear. The other quote that I love to talk about with this work is Sid Banks's quote about, if the only thing people learned was not to be afraid of their experience, that alone would change the world. And it changes the world because, again, fear in here equals fear with what's out there, or hate, or dislike, or resistance, or all of the stuff that keeps us in battle. So very much my work is about helping you recognise these barriers that have been innocently collected over the years and understanding them so we can understand their logic. We understand the logic that was put in place at the point they were collected, and we can see how that logic is no longer holding true today, how the original aim of that logic is not fulfilling the outcome that was wanted. And we get to see that what's really wanted through all of these psychological stories and psychological games is really the feeling of ourself. So in exploring these patterns and these repetitive behaviours in us, we see how, in a really wonky way, that conditioning was just trying to get back to the feeling of ourself. And so now, thanks to awakening and recognising our essential nature, we know where the feeling of ourself is. We don't now need to go on this convoluted psychological journey to get there, which never quite works out anyway. So yeah, so part of our exploration is very much about seeing and understanding this psychological story, seeing the logic of when they were collected, and seeing how that logic isn't holding true anymore today. And we also go towards the feelings of this. So we connect into the body, we recognise that beneath the scary stories and beneath the scary label that says exposing or dangerous or not safe, below the scary labels we find the physical sensations that we've been running away from. And always the invitation is to turn around and face these things. We face those feelings, we look at them, we're with them, we see them, we experience them. We stop holding them at arm's length as if they're dangerous, and we come into relationship with them. We come back into connection with them. And that's when they start to dissolve, that's when they start to dissipate. That's when the barriers start to disappear within you. Same with the thinking. We see it, we understand it, we hold it in that loving awareness, and it dissipates, it dissolves, it crumbles, the barriers fall away. And every time that happens, there's a bit more alignment, a bit more flow, a bit more ease, because you've now no longer got your essential nature flowing through all this confusion. You're just flowing directly into the creation of life. And that's what everyone really wants. We've just all been taught to find it in a really wonky way. So it might be that you've already begun some form of enlightenment, because even normal coaching is challenging your beliefs. It's starting to point at these stories that have been collected and say, well, that's not really true, is it? This goes a bit deeper. We deeply see the nature of the stories, we deeply understand the feelings, we deeply see how the world is reflecting that back to you in order to help you see it. And we see that none of them are true. And so whether you come to this first and feel the draw to lighten some of your conditioning, to lighten some of the patterns that keep repeating in your life, or whether you go to awakening first to recognise your essential nature, it really doesn't matter. Each supports the other. And so whichever you do will support, more enlightenment supports awakening because you're removing some of the confusion in your eyes. And more awakening supports enlightenment because the more you know your essential nature, the more space there is to see these stories as you come to recognise they're not personal. So wherever you decide to begin does not matter. Feel what's right for you, feel what's the next thing for you, and go with that. So I look forward to hearing from you. Get in touch with any of your questions. Get us a discovery call booked in if you feel the draw to have some private one-to-one sessions with me. And I would really love to connect with you and support you with your enlightenment. Much love.